China, and right now I'm doing my PhD at the Faculty of Architecture. I'm doing my PhD in environmental behavior study. What basically do we do? Here is a joke. I think it works better if it's covered. So you must see a lot of pictures like this online to compare like the difference between men and women. Like for instance, if you give them a task to go to a shopping mall and buy a pair of pants, a man would go there, spend 11 minutes, 6 euros, bought a pair of pants, done. And women, and they're like route in the shopping mall would be like target driven, found a thing, buy the thing, and leave. And for the women, they would, okay, I will go to the shopping mall and buy a pair of pants today. So they enter a shopping mall, they wander around, pass all the stores inside the shopping mall as much as they can, and they buy a lot of things rather than just a pair of pants. They spend way much longer time than men, and they also spend a lot of money because they bought more things. So this is an activity that we kind of run into every day.
But it's not a joke, right? It's great.
What? Yeah, I partially agree. So if you think about this process and the information that you derived from the whole picture, there are three key, let's say, elements. There will be the place, as we call the setting for the behavior, which is the shopping mall in this case. And there will be activity. In this case, it's to go to a shopping mall and to buy a pair of pants. And also there will be a user group, which is people, basically. And in this case, we had two user groups, which is men and women. And by comparing, you can see a very obvious difference. So this is kind of like the very basic concept of what is environmental behavior study. And this is something that can be applied at different levels for the daily life of human beings. It can start at a very, very big level, like we can analyze the behavior or certain demands of population in a city. For instance, let's just have Dresden as an example. If you first come to Dresden and you're like a young people in your 20s or 30s, you want to look for a partner to live, and you want to have kind of like exciting social life during your stay in Dresden, then you would probably consider Neustadt as an option rather than some like outskirt area. And also it can be at a building level, like we analyze some behaviors within a building. For instance, has anyone here been to the Parliament of Dresden? The building is like this. Here's the hall that you would have the conference meeting with. And maybe some of you noticed that there is like a court here, a garden. And you have a U-shaped building kind of surrounded the garden. And here is a small fountain, flowing water thing, make nice landscape. And after they had this new part of the building built, they started to realize a problem that the people who work here, facing the garden, they use the toilet more frequently than the people in other parts of the building. And why? As everyone laughed, because the sound somehow triggered them. It can also be an even smaller scale, like inside a room. For instance, if we go to a bar and we are expecting a friend, let's say here is the entrance of the bar, and you have the counter, and you may have some tables. You enter this bar, and then you need to do something. If you just enter the bar to kind of kill time, you're alone, you want to meet people randomly, maybe you just go to the bar and talk with the bartender. So you will be somewhere here. It's a place where you easily meet other people who also come to order, and also you would have time to talk with the bartender if there's not so many guests. And if you are planning to go to the bar just to meet a friend, and then you will leave to somewhere else, as this is a place you both know, so you will probably sit somewhere here, or here, which is easily be seen when people enter the room, and also have a quite good visibility to the entrance. So you know that whoever is entering, you can just find out whether it's the friend you're expecting or not. Going to the bar and you're supposed to meet a friend and you're thinking to have some conversation there. Maybe you would pick this table here or here because it's at the corner, it's more private. So when your friend comes, you could just have a relative private space inside a public space. The possibility of activities in that bar can vary a lot. It depends on your needs, your wants, and this different needs and wants influence this relationship among those three elements, even though it's just a very, very tiny environment here. And it can also go very, very detailed into a quite small scale. For instance, I will just draw here. Let's see, there's a table, and you have several chairs. And you're meeting, let's say, a girl you met once, and you want to kind of have a date with her. So how do you pick up the seat to sit with her? So if you sit like this, it will make the conversation or the atmosphere a little bit formal, as people can constantly see the face of each other. And when you don't know each other so well, you feel nervous, and you don't dare to look at into their eyes always. And if you pick the seats like this, it's slightly better as you don't see each other, but you are sitting closer. However, the disadvantage is also because you don't see each other almost at all, so it also reduces the connection between you two. And if you sit like this, then it probably is better, because then you still have a space of privacy. You don't feel too close with someone. You can easily engage into eye contact when you want to, and when you feel nervous or uncomfortable, you can just naturally turn your head to look at somewhere else. So that is also why, sometimes if you go to a bar with a bunch of friends, and you have a long table, people are sitting around the table like this. If you sit somewhere here in the middle, and you didn't have a very nice conversation, or you're not very interested in the people who are sitting next to you on the both sides, then it will be probably difficult for you to even start a conversation with the one who is sitting across you, because you would have the space in between. But it's also why sometimes when you sit here at the corner, you would kind of be forced into a more close or deep conversation rather than just a small talk, because the environment naturally gives you kind of a situation that is easily for people to engage into such a type of feeling. I bet everyone here must see the picture online. It's the best known illusion of our human mind. If you have two lines at the same length, but with arrows of different directions into the end, you would feel this one is longer than this one. That's kind of very natural feeling. Even though you measure them and then you realize they are the same, your mind is still constantly telling you that they are different. It was first discovered, I think, in 1960s, something around that. And the sociologists started to become very, very curious, and they want to discover why our brain has such an illusion. What is exactly the part of the brain influenced us to have such an illusion? And I guess a lot of different groups around the world repeated this experiment in their lab, and they want to see whether there's any difference on people group or cultural background or social background. And they couldn't find any difference, but still they're not able to really detect the part of the brain that is control this illusion back then. Until a group, they found a tribe somewhere in Africa, and people from that tribe, they had a significant lower ratio to have this illusion. And then they were thinking why, and then they realized that it is because the way we live our life in cities and buildings influence the way that we see the world. Because we live, almost all the cultures, we live in the buildings, which are rectangular shaped. Which means that if you enter a room, you will see the room like this. the perspective. It's always like this. And when you enter a room, you will know that that wall is the same size as this wall, which means the length of this line is the same as the length of this line in real life. So you know that, okay, when I see a picture like this, in real life, they would be the same, which is like a three-dimensional situation. But when you see them written on the paper, your brain will still kind of tell you, okay, they are the same, because you always see pictures like this. And for the people living in that tribe, they had their villages built quite differently. They have the round-shaped house, or it's some kind of tent that they just live in, maybe like this. So in their life, they don't have something constantly happening, telling them that, okay, this is the right thing, and the world is just based on the feeling like this, because they don't have a world like this. So you can see that how much our brain, or we as humans, are so easily influenced by the place that we live in. They shape us in a way that maybe you don't even realize. That's basically what environmental behavior study is and what it can do. What we do is we use environmental behavior study and also evidence-based design, something like more modern, to do aging-friendly building design. So we want to offer recommendations and suggestions for architects to build more friendly hospitals or nursing homes or daycare centers for the elderly or the patients, because they are like more fragile, they're more easily disturbed by the environment if it's not very well designed. And we use this like study as one of our powerful tools to do that research. So right now in Germany we have two very common type of building for daycare centers. One is like a common apartment room, so you have a living room located in a center, and that room organizes all the other rooms. And the other ones, they are maybe run by the hospitals or long-term care nursing homes. So they would have that daycare center located in the building, which is more institutional, like, basically like this. So it would have a long double-loaded corridor on the both sides of the corridor. And for nursing homes, there were a lot of study has suggested that this is not very good for people with dementia, because it's a little bit confusing for them, as all the space looks so similar, and it's difficult for them to locate themselves, to navigate themselves. But in our study, we are thinking on one side, if this kind of design is not so easy to avoid, could we make that space more friendly, nicer? So we want to know which kind of activity that is more often happen. That is more located within the space. And then we found out actually people in daycare centers, they use the corridor like a living room, not just like a transition zone that you go from one space to another space. So that means the space itself doesn't have to be necessarily bad. It depends on which kind of function you gave to that space. If you design a corridor which is super boring, just white, plain color, nothing on the wall and no furniture for people to sit down, of course they cannot really do anything there. But if you kind of enlarge the space to make it more than just for walking, people would have opportunity to sit down, to maybe initiate a small talk, because this is a space that you easily run into people. Like if you leave your room and someone else is also walking, you will definitely see each other. And if the space is like talking friendly, then it's easily that this kind of positive activity we call can happen.
Doesn't make sense. Or, I mean, the floor plan is not important, just the interior is important?
This is a very good question. I think it's really hard to distinguish the influence from different factors, because human beings is such a complicated being. We're influenced by too many things, by the interior design of space, by the material of the furniture, by the color, by the light. So all those things will influence. So it's really hard to conclude in the end whether it is just the shape of the space, the function of the space, or something else, even the attitude of the caregivers that are influencing the result. That's also something, right? Thank you for bringing that up. That's also something I want to say here. So I think that in most studies that using like environmental behavior as a foundation, we discovered it's just correlation, but it's not causality. So even though we found some positive correlation between two elements or among the three elements, it is still, I would say, very, very difficult to really conclude which one influenced the other, or they are altogether influenced by something else that is out of this triangle. So if this is your house, and you enter the house, let's say here, so this is like the hallway of the house. Let's just pretend this is the living room. And then you have 4 or 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. And if we symbolize, because this is the floor plan, and when you have very complex building, the floor plan will be very complicated. It will only be understood by architects, the people who were trained to read this type of maps. And sometimes it makes research on the space difficult. Like people from other field, they also have to be trained to read the map first and then to analyze. So it makes the whole thing a little bit less efficient. So a group in the UCL, they came up with a way to analyze the space mathematically. So they simplified the space. We call it convex area. In this case, all the areas are convex area. But first, number the room, and then you replace the floor plan into dots and lines. Dots would represent the space, and you use line to be the connection between them. And then you can do some calculation based on that. And that's very interesting. You can check about some papers from Space Syntax that they use that to analyze why in some cities some certain area is unsafe, even though maybe it's a quite nicely designed space. So, but maybe like the road connection is not good, or some visibility of the space is not good. Building codes, they are just for the basic needs. For instance, for design public building, when you want to have a corridor, you have to be at least, well, it depends on the length of the corridor. It has to be at least 1.8 meter in width, so that people with wheelchair, they can also pass by each other. So that's the building code, but we would recommend it to be even wider, because then you would still have a space, as I mentioned, maybe for furniture or for something else, to make the function of that corridor more diverse.
One more question.
Sure.
Which bar would you recommend?
Well, that's the most relevant question.
Okay.
Okay.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.